Well, joining me now to discuss much more on this topic, we have the Chief Executive Officer of Cowrie Assets Limited, Johnson Chukwu, joining me via Skype from Lagos Island for more on this discussion. Good to have you join us, Johnson. Now, let's start first with the latest report of the President's signing of the 2019 Finance Bill. Now, the bill alongside the 2020 budget is aimed at three things: reforming the tax system, ensuring that we have much more support for MSMEs, and improving ease of doing business. This is the first time, you would say.
Well, for me, it's actually a positive development that the President has signed the finance bill into law, just coming a couple of weeks after he signed the national budget into law. And the basic thing about the finance bill is that it creates revenue opportunities for the government. It also grants some tax relief to small and medium-scale enterprises. And basic thing is that what we should push in is to encourage the small and medium-scale enterprises to prosper, to grow and prosper, to expand. And I mean, with the finance bill, which specifies the minimum amount of revenue that a company must be earning before it's subject to a corporate tax, it then means that small and medium-scale companies will have some kind of relief, whereas for those who have the capacity to pay, the tax burden will increase. I mean, for the first time in a long while, we're really pushing for a progressive tax system. You know that the value-added tax is going to increase, which is the easiest tax to collect. Granted, the amount that will come to the federal government will not be so huge, but the state government and local government will be the major beneficiary of the increase in value-added tax. So ultimately, the finance bill, which has now been signed into law, will create new revenue opportunities for the government at the 3 tiers, and will as well grant some relief to small and medium-scale enterprises as it relates to the tax burden they've been bearing.
Now, Johnson, would you also say this is coming on the back of the increase we've seen in payment of taxes and this drive for revenue generation?
Yes, I mean, we all know that the government has been driving for revenue, increase in revenue from taxes. I mean, beyond the fact that the government is pushing to expand the tax base, there's also a drive to ensure that people comply with the tax payments. They've come up with a couple of policies that relate to some instances granting amnesty to those who were in default of tax payments so that they could come and pay off their taxes. And then an incorporation of the biometric numbers for account holders into the tax system, so that anybody who has a BVN or who has an account with any bank, in fact, it's now required before you can open a bank account, you must have, before you really do a lot of things with the government, you must have a BVN. So the incorporation of the BVN into the tax system will also make it more difficult for people to escape their tax liability. So the government has been consistent in having to the tax revenue base, and not just in terms of the base, in terms of collectability and the ease of collection. And of course, one of the bends of our tax system has been the cost of collection and the burden of paying taxes, which the government has been simplified.
Now, the year 2020 has already kick-started on quite an active note. We've had so many projections and forecasts, but the latest now coming from financial derivatives is saying that, well, we should expect some likely increase in headline inflation to 12.10% in the month of December. This is also up from 11.85 recorded in November. If this projection is correct, this will be the fourth consecutive month of rising inflation. What do you make of this report, mimicking what we had before the recession in 2016?
Well, a couple of things that contributed to the inflation, so that we don't think that it's just an increase in inflation rate that brought about the inflation. But the basic thing that happened, that the inflation rate, the increase in inflation we have been witnessing, have been driven by principally one factor, and that is the border closure, which led to an increase in food prices, particularly cereals such as rice. And of course, when the increase in cereals happened, we saw a switching in consumption from the price of rice to sugar, which also led to an increase in the price of sugar. If you look at the November inflation that increased to 11.85%, Nigerian Bureau of Statistics attributed that largely to increase in food, although there was an increase across all the items measured, 12 items measured. But the major increase came in terms of food items. And they were able to nail those increases down to increase in the likes of tuber, which could actually be explained by a shift in consumption from rice to tuber. So the basic thing that has happened in the past 4 months is that the shortfall in supply as a result of the closure of the border led to increase in prices. And we know that the month of December has traditionally witnessed increased inflation rate because of the surge in demand, which is most entirely not made by supply of goods and services. To expect that the inflation rate will increase in December, given that the pressure coming from the border closure has not yet abated, and then we entered a season of high demand for goods and services.
Now, Johnson, it's no news that the headline inflation is largely due to money supply saturation, lower interest rates, increases now demand, and the base year effects of the border closure. But now that the government says that the opening, which is January this month, the end of this month, is not sacrosanct, what cushions do you expect we should have going forward into 2020 if the border still will remain shut?
Well, the inflation is a measure of the annual inflation is a measure of what the price levels were at the specific month and the previous year, and the month inflation measures the change in price levels between 1 month and the next month. But if we have to dwell on the annual inflation, over time, the base effect will begin to manifest in the sense that the period we are measuring, the preceding period we are measuring would have also been high. So the increases are not likely going to be a sustained increases. And people need to understand that when you talk of increase in inflation rate, what they are saying that what were the price levels in December 2018 compared to the price levels in December 2019. So you are looking for year-on-year change in price level. So once we move along the time series and we get to a point when the base effect will neutralize further increases, at some point you're going to see moderation in the rate of inflation, or the rate at which the inflation rate is decreasing, because the base effect will kick in.
Okay, now let's also take a look at other indices. Now, economic theory shows that low interest rates have a positive relationship with consumption, but a negative relationship with savings. The Central Bank of Nigeria in recent times has also left MPR unchanged at 13.5% as at the last meeting, and a reduction in interest rates also encourages consumers and corporates to borrow more, with an attendant boost in money in circulation. But what's your anticipation for the next MPC meeting? Do you see a tighter or loosening policy regime?
Well, I think the next MPC meeting is going to be very interesting. Let me start from that note. In the first place, a lot of some pressures are beginning to manifest today. The low interest rate is beginning to push liquidity into the FX market, and also maybe discouraging foreign portfolio investors into investing in fixed income instruments. So you are seeing pressure on the exchange rate, which will also manifest in the foreign reserve. Those factors, depending on how intense they are, determine what direction the Monetary Policy Committee will decide on. Today, the low interest rate has not really spurred so much of consumer credit because of weak income levels. So we are not seeing that benefit. Of course, with increase in lending to the real sector of the economy, but that also needs to be supported by consumer demand, which has not taken place so far. But unfortunately, we are seeing pressures on the FX side, and that pressure, if it becomes weighty, could compel the Monetary Policy Committee to decide to increase rates or to release the downward pressure they have placed on the interest rate, fixed income instruments. So I think it's too early to decide which direction they will take. The pressures are building up. I hope that as businesses resume, the demand for FX will not so much overwhelm the CBN's projected outflow. And should that happen, they may now need to consider how to incentivize foreign portfolio investors to resume investment in the fixed income instruments.
Okay, now, Johnson, we're slowly wrapping up our conversation. Let's talk about the capital market. The average yield on Treasury bills declined sharply to 4.83% in December last year from 12.82% that was earlier recorded in November 2018, while credit to the private sector also spiked 16.29%, which means about 26.41 trillion naira was given out to the private sector. to support the real sector of the economy. Now, if the CBN still maintains LDR at 65%, as it has said, let's talk about non-performing loans and facing the realities that we still have so many of external factors making these loans go bad because people are still spending money on power, on infrastructure, not necessarily spending it on their business.
You see, that's the challenge we have. The increase in loan to deposit ratios from 60 to 65% has had a positive impact on the volume of credit that has gone to the private sector because the banks are trying to comply. But what goes with sudden credit expansion is that the bank may be compelled to lend to subprime customers. Of course, subprime customers are likely also have higher risk of default. But it's too early to call. The banks have to really do a lot of work to make sure they maintain their credit quality. Of course, in the recent time, we've seen a drop in the number of loans to the time loan from about 14%, about 5 or 9, between 5 and 9%, which looks positive. But that drop was also driven by two other factors. One, increase in the level of credit, the volume of credit, which has moderated of course, if you increase the denominator in any fraction, you are going to reduce the value of that fraction. That impact of increase in volume of credit has had a positive impact on the number of millions. Of course, they may have this of recovery. But if the banks have to maintain strong credit qualities, they have to identify their monitoring standards, they also have to strengthen their credit approval processes so as to sieve out the weak credit customers that will be coming in to enjoy credit now that the banks are compared to lend. But all things being equal, a stronger credit expansion should have a positive impact on the economy, provided we manage the fallout that relates to the number of loans.
And Johnson, now, did you anticipate the weakening of the Naira, 363 Naira to the dollar at the parallel market? Although it appreciated slightly close to the month at about, December, 362 thereabout. But we've seen that similarly, the currency has touched a 12-month low, looking at how we've seen it also trade on the importers and exporters foreign exchange window.
Yes, like I said earlier, when the reserve and the capital of the central bank to defend the Naira is dependent to some extent on foreign on capital importation, with the lower interest rates on fixed income instruments and some level of liquidity constraint, because when you stop the private sector investor from trading in normal, then it simply means that for foreign portfolio investors, they believe that the off-takers they can sell to have been eliminated, and therefore the liquidity may be some effect constrained. So that would ordinarily discourage foreign portfolio investors from buying debt instruments in Nigerian debt instruments and bringing their capital into the country. Remember, the foreign portfolio investors are basically arbitrage, and they are not buying because they love Nigeria. They borrow from their own countries at 2% and buy instruments at 10-12%. So if the margin drops to 1% or 2%, like 91-day bills have dropped about 3.4%, then the foreign investors are going to ask themselves, would this margin be enough to compensate for the risk associated with exchange rate risk? And that may not, the answer may not be positive. So I'm seeing, I actually expected that you're going to see a slowdown in capital importation, and that will have a negative effect on the reserve, as well as could lead to the deterioration in the exchange rate that we're witnessing. So it's not out of place. Once you understand how these economies work, clearly, if you slow down capital importation, you're going to have possibly a reversal of capital flow, and that will put pressure on your reserve and put pressure on your exchange rate.
Okay, thank you very much, Johnson Chukwu. It's quite a pleasure to have this discussion with you. We'll definitely have another catch-up, and welcome back to Lagos.